to day 11 of our 30 days of PM challenge, where we discuss things around product management and things that a product manager does during their typical day. So, here we are at day 11 of our 30 days of PM series, powered primarily by content from Crew Work and their 30 days of PM series, where we are following along the journey, trying to look at resources, learn more about topics being discussed on daily basis. I share my insights here through this video and on our Twitter and YouTube channels, but you can also learn more through the resources linked and resources provided within this video in the description section. And we'll today cover about user segmentation, which in essence, we've been talking about user personas, user journeys and user segmentation a while, and we've discussed this multiple times, where users are at the center of all things that you are trying to build as a product manager, right? Because users are at the end of the day consumers of what you build. They are the ones paying for what you build, and how you deliver and improve their lives is very important, because the product is hired to solve for a function or a problem that the user is facing, and your job as a product manager is to build solutions and features and enhancements to the product which helps them make their lives easier, make their job easier, and make money along the way, right? And build businesses that are scalable and can also solve multiple problems at multiple levels for a typical organization or for an individual. Can be through hardware or software, doesn't really matter, but user segmentation comes and is a very important part when building products as a PM. So why do we need to segment your users, right? Why do that in the first place? So a simple analogy, as also given in the document and the article here, is about sorting laundry, right? When you have multiple things to wash, you sort laundry based on the type of clothing that you are planning to wash for that particular day, and organize them in a way, and then put them in the washing machine to wash and dry and use them later. Similarly, when you're looking also at problems of personas of users who belong to different backgrounds and have different requirements, you as a product manager have to be able to figure out in which bucket do they fall under, in which bucket does where the user falls, and where their features fall in all the requirements and things that you have to deliver for a product, right? So it's a lot like sorting laundry. It's also about putting things in the right place and in the right grouping that they belong to. And user segmentation is a lot of the times grouping a series of rules or set of uh, properties together and building a segment of users, and then doing analysis and research on a specific set of audience, right? So for example, when you are a startup and you build products that are meant for a specific user persona, and for it could be any persona, right? If you're building a product for marketers to help them edit their videos faster and provide them with better content discovery through AI and other tools, your persona is very specific and segmented, where you are trying to look at people who want to become influencers or want to have some social following along the way, and you are trying to help their job, make their lives easier by helping them automate or helping them reduce the time they spend in a typical day to just write scripts or edit videos. So you have this is one example of segmenting users, and segmenting users based on what you're building and the persona you're catering to, right? So that's the basic way of how you uh, think of user segmentation. You group things together or group properties together into a certain group in a specific group, and then apply users and put them under these buckets of categories and segments, and then apply your research, build products for a specific segment, or think of I, solving the main core problems regarding every segment of your users, and how to build that within the platform such that it is scalable. So these are a few examples where you segment your users a lot of the times you segment users when looking at analytics of data, right? For example, you're trying to segment visitors who have visited your homepage that belong to a specific region, belong to a specific demographic range, speak a certain language, have a few personal identifiers about them, can be a lot of parameters about the users, whether they've spent more than 30 minutes on the platform, if they've logged in the last 7 days. So these are properties which you can combine together to build segments of users and look at analytics pertaining to a specific segment that you have created, and get the data, build some insights, and deliver features by taking bets or researching additional details that providing a particular solution for the user will do the job for them. So that's about user segmentation, and here they have also given us a similar example where you have a community swimming pool that is requested, but there are several items that you can be delivered, and you have asked and you have categorized 8 requests that have come from the community, and you have scored them against the number of requests for a particular feature that they have received. But out of all these 8, if for example you only have the budget to accommodate 3, which is a lot of the times a typical problem a product manager faces, where they have 10 things to deliver to 10 different customers, but because of bandwidth constraints you can only deliver, for example, the top 3 or top 4 requirements out of the 10, that all of them are urgent and blockers for customers, right? So a lot of the times this is a scenario that you face on when working with different stakeholders and prioritizing stories or prioritizing features for delivery. So a lot of the times it has to be very, you have to be very good at making calls and making informative calls that are backed by data and analysis, where for example out of the 10 you can accommodate uh, 3, so you focus on the two most important customers that you have to deliver and look for, and the other one can be another customer whom you have not delivered any enhancement in the last few months. So there can be multiple reasons why you want to prioritize select 3 out of the 10 list of items, but a lot of the times it's about working on your segment of users and their request, and picking and choosing the best out of those based on all the other factors that are at play, right? So here we see what we delivered. So out of the 8, they delivered a few set of enhancements and few set of requests where they built starting blocks. They had added a ping pong table and a lounge chair, but who actually needed these? And eventually the amount of usage that was expected did not really meet the needs. So they delivered 3 things, but it did not cater to the 3 segments that the user and the audience was divided into. So to avoid this situation, always think, when in the requirement or the problem and solution phase itself, think of you are targeting to who you are targeting a specific feature to, right? And the trouble is, a lot of the times you might have multiple personas that you're delivering to. You might be delivering to engineers, you might also be delivering to marketers, and also delivering to sales folks, right? And then their leadership also. So there are 4 personas just like that. And if you know who will be using the product the most, for example, it could be marketing and people in the marketing team using your product the most, so you prioritize and focus on things that align with marketing to begin with and makes their lives easier, but something that can also tie back to engineering and sales also, and that can help them, not directly, can be indirect or in other way, shape or form. But this is one way to segment features and segment based on the needs and the requirements, and try to salvage and try to provide some enhancements or some updates, so that the customer at the end of the day feels heard and is also having positive connections with you and the team when building and delivering features. So in this case it didn't really work out to the plans. They delivered 3 things, but the amount of uh, usage they would have expected did not really hit their expected marks. So what could have been done what should have been done is to look at the actual needs of these, right? So in competitive needs we had starting blocks and swim lanes. In teams need you had ping pong, you have concession, and you had a basketball court. But you also have what parents need, which is a lounge, a swim lane, and a water slide. But try to look at the common items here, right? So you can see swim lanes is common between competitors and also between parents, so, and not in teens. So a way to look at this would be, so if I deliver swim lanes, I know the parents will be happy, and they can probably force or probably delay the request their teens make, right? So that can be one thing. I mean, in terms of influencing and making changes, this is one way of looking at the details. But also figuring out the most amount of value can be delivered to as large of a customer base as possible, right? So these are a few ways to look at segmentation and how to do segment. And to segment users, you segment them on various properties, right? It can be demographics can include gender, language, race, but a lot of the times this is not really something that you use very often. Demographic being, you could use demographics in the sense of when the platform is being used the most in terms of region, and what times do the usage peaks happen on the platform, and what device they belong to in terms of debugging issues. But at its core, a lot of the times demographic is not really into consideration, or like a heavier piece when making these decisions on segmenting users. Yes, it helps to segment them based on region, but it's a lot of the time segmenting has to also be looked at an emotional, or at a, I mean, at a mental level, over just hard facts and hard details, right? So a lot of the times it boils down to the details, and these details matter. And it is not always just a case of segmenting things based on a specific gender or a region or a race, where it's much wider than that. And I think we have also a few other resources that talk about how to segment, and the first one is here. So in terms of user segmentation, which is essentially also talking about customer personas, and where do these customer personas come from. These personas are basically your segment of users, and for each segment of user and customer personas, you look at their demographics. And I mean, it's good to know about the demographics of there, but it will really not impact your decision making when it comes to just having demographic data. So it's always important to look at other components as well, and figure out their emotional and important workflow needs that need to be addressed over other artificial metrics and properties, right? So when, I mean, segmenting users, also look at their challenges, right? If a certain number of challenges by multiple customers is faced on the automation end of the product, you look to segment these users belonging to a certain challenge category, right? Where the problem is on the automation category, for example, or it could be on the dashboarding capabilities. So you can also, demographics help, it's more helpful as context on a particular user. But the main things that you need to consider is to group them by challenges and what they are facing, and what types of complaints they raise, right? So there might be a similar request in terms of support or enhancements for a section of the platform, which uh, which is reported by different customers. And now you have the opportunity to club or merge these two requests and build a better solution that helps not only both these customers, but also customers that eventually might have a workflow that meets the needs, and can be delivered through the enhancement that you made. So always look at challenges and group your customer personas and customer segments by challenges and how they identify themselves, right? So it can be based on the role of the user, right? So there can be developers, there can be segment challenges for users that belong to a segment called marketers, or developers, or security engineers. So that's another key way you could segment users. And the key purchase drivers, right? Why would a user or a leadership team actually approve purchase of a specific product, right? And and look at, and for you, when on these situations and in these POC and POV calls, always look at the drivers and key reasons why they are looking to purchase a specific product, and what meets their needs, which is already supported, which if there are things that are not supported that needs to be added, prioritize and fix them, right? And make them a separate category altogether, where in a POC where you have an enhancement request for a specific feature that is not really addressed currently or not really available in the platform currently, you could just segment the I mean the problem or the persona of segment of users in that category, right? So you could look at demographics, you could look at other details of the user and their interest, and the challenges are essentially the support or feature not being available, which a lot of segments can be created on just the things that are not supported, but not supported in context of what can be another layer of segmentation. And if and if for example a particular segment of users and their needs are satisfied, what would then be the key reasons they would purchase the product, right? Is just delivering this specific request doing the job, or there needs to be other enhancements as well that needs to be added? So these are a few things and details around customer personas and how to deal with them. And we look at more resources and more resources and also situations of what can be delivered to a customer persona and build for them from there, right? So what is a user segment from there? So a segmentation is very important when you're doing analysis, as I mentioned, right? When looking at analytics, it's very helpful to have these segments available to you and use these segments to look at a specific behavior of users and make decisions from there. So always segment users to also analyze and look at data. For example, a very specific account or a very specific customer you have, and you have multiple personas within that organization using your product, it's helpful to segment these users and look at their behavior from there, and improve the product from there, right? So this is how segmentation helps you and is a very important factor when delivering requests or delivering enhancements, where your primary focus is to deliver the request for that specific segment, but also look at opportunities of complementing other personas and other segment of users that can also leverage a specific functionality or enhancement. So this is how user segments are used. And as a PM, you are always cognizant of who the end user is and what are the properties of this user, what are their motivations of using the product. Are they more automation focused? Are they looking at things that needs to be visualized to them? Are they more on data specifics and things around that needs to be improved? So always look out for the motivations of these users, segment them in a particular bucket, and then deliver the best possible solutions to them, right? Because for every enhancement there can be multiple ways to solve a problem, right? You could probably build a visualization or a way to visualize things, or you could give them a way to query this data automatically. If they are a more data focused and data heavy sort of user persona you're dealing with, they would expect the ability to manipulate data and ability to query this data in the way they like. But if they are more on the managerial side and looking at reports and want have to generate reports on a weekly cadence for their managers, they would probably prefer, instead of querying data all the time, they would prefer like a dashboard widget to do the job for them and make it easier. So it's always important to segment users based on their motivations, their challenges, their demographics as context, and the key reasons and the key factors that will make them satisfied or make them resolve the particular request, right? So always segment users to look at analytics of their I mean to look at analytics and data of a specific segment of users and make decisions and make calls from there. And a typical customer persona looks, for example, like this, right? You look at what is the value proposition that you are providing them, and or value proposition that the customer or the specific segment of users is looking for. There can be multiple propositions, but if you segment these users based on, oh, what do they do, what are their motivations, what are their pain points, what contributes, what contributions do they do to your existing business, or what contribution the user can provide to their own business leveraging your product, right? And what are their goals in the coming times? Because when, for example, building request or building enhancements, it's also important to understand their motivation behind a specific request and how you can help them, right? So it if you help the customer or help the user to look good within their organization and within their team, it automatically also helps and builds trust eventually with the user, and the partnership essentially grows from there, where you are able to deliver value to the customer and the customer can then show the value to their own peers. So this is a typical model where multiple organizations provide features for free for an individual users, but when it comes to then providing the same features to a set of users that belong to a specific team, the monetization kicks in at that point, right? So individually it works out fine. When you have a group of users that belong to a segment, just having even one user as part of your customer base, and then them having looped in other stakeholders that do similar jobs, and growing the user count and being able to sell the product more and to a wider audience grows. So that is why we build these customer personas to, for example, target someone who fits that persona, and then leveraging them to also influence other stakeholders that meet the persona within their organization, and grow and sell the product base and generate sales from that. So this is how the user persona can help, not just in the product side but also on the sales and marketing side of things, right? Because you want to market the product to the persona that actually is interested in it. You don't just want to, and want to be very narrowed down and focused on the approach when marketing or even building products for that matter. But as a product manager, your job is not to market and think about marketing strategies, but to look at how you can solve for these customer personas and help solve their problems based on all the motivation and the challenges that you know about after conversations with them. If from looking at user interviews and user sessions with them, like we discussed about yesterday, and building those solutions for a customer persona. And probably if you have multiple personas, it's always helpful to look at the top personas and deliver requests for them and get their feedback and iterate and improve the product such that it also complements the other personas that don't have a lot of segmentation and a lot of users belonging to that specific segment. But eventually through these bigger segment of users, you can influence and also uplift, for example, the other segment of users which are not very popular when it comes to, for example, a specific product that you are building. So always segment users, look at analytics based on these segments, make decisions and make calls, and eventually always keep the end goal in mind, such that whenever an enhancement for a specific segment is delivered, it always brings in positive impact and positive change to the user's workflow. So yeah, this is how you can also chart these data pointers, where you can have the outcomes. For example, these could be business outcomes that you want to achieve, and which, and then custom and have a criteria to meet these outcomes, and which customers fit under these outcomes, and which customers can deliver and help you deliver these outcomes that you are trying to achieve. For example, a few organizations might have multiple users that belong to a persona, but you have been able to attract, for example, a few users within that organization. Now it's sales that can kick in to also influence through the existing two personas that you have been working and collaborating with, to also influence everyone else within their organization and generate a sale out of that. But yeah, that's essentially about user personas and user segmentation. How do you segment these users and build journeys and build solutions for these segments? And uh, there are multiple categories and multiple components when segmenting. Like we talk about demographics, segmenting based on demographics and interests, challenges of these users, the identifiers, and how do they identify themselves, as where do they communicate, where do they work, what are their value propositions, what are the business goals that they are trying to achieve, what are their OKRs and KPIs for a specific time period, and what makes them purchase, and what will move the needle in the side of the sale and purchase of a particular product. So these are a few ways of how you segment users. Make use of this user segmentation to drive decisions and build features that enhance the product's capabilities and help mature the product. But to end with, I have a video which talks about the jobs to be done framework, which we talked about earlier, where with the jobs to be done framework, we're looking at outcomes and doing the research of what the customer job is at hand, and how you want to get it done through the platform or the enhancement, and how they differ from personas, and how you can a lot of the times also combine these together and build solutions for products. So I'll just play this and we'll end the video here.
I get asked all the time, have jobs to be done made personas obsolete? The answer is a firm no. Jobs to be done are another useful tool, but they haven't killed personas, not by far. Personas and jobs to be done are completely compatible. Jobs to be done are a fairly new framework for thinking in a user centered way about features for products. The idea is that people hire your product to fulfill a need, and they may have hired your product for something you didn't even envision. For example, the old Henry Ford quote where he said, "If I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have asked for a faster horse." The job to be done in that situation was the need to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible, not the specific way that they got there, not the form of transportation. So product teams, they'll do user research and they'll write up a list of these jobs to be done in simple, clear language so they have them as a reference for what they should build. The thinking goes, if you can identify that real underlying need, that root cause, you can be better equipped to design something that helps satisfy the need better than you could if you were just focusing on features, demographics, or specific types of users. Based on this, I've heard a lot of people express the idea that jobs to be done are a better input for design than going by demographics and personas. But that's based on a fundamental misunderstanding. Good personas aren't focused on demographics, because those don't tell us much about user behavior. In fact, good personas don't really need much demographic information at all. Personas that are a useful tool for designers are all about users' needs, their goals, their expectations, their behaviors, and their attitudes. It's very similar to the type of information that jobs to be done can tell you. Plus, they help your team empathize with your users. I've never met a team that was burdened by too much empathy for their users. So this is really an important factor. Personas also help you to balance the needs of different users. Not everybody has the same goals and expectations for your product, so personas help you weigh competing factors and prioritize those different users' needs effectively. And finally, remember, personas and jobs to be done are 100% compatible. Do you want to use both? Great. You can list the top jobs to be done that apply to each persona right there on the persona. Or you can show all your jobs to be done in a big list and tag each one with all the personas that are looking to hire for those jobs. Personas give us so much additional detail about needs and goals while promoting empathy for our users. Why take that stuff away from your team? Jobs to be done are just another tool. They're like personas. They help us focus on creating useful products that meet our users' needs.
So yeah, I think that's pretty well said, where they gave the example of Ford and how the Ford group essentially, if they ask their customers what they were trying to do and what they would like to have as a feature, they would probably tell a faster horse. Instead of, as a PM or as a product person, your objective is to look at the job at hand. The job at hand is not to build a faster horse. The job at hand for the end customer is to get from point A to point B, and to make that as quick and as quick as possible. It's not about building a better horse, it's probably a different means of transport altogether, which built ourselves, right? So this is how jobs to be done works, and jobs to be done looks at the outcomes and the end goal that the customer is trying to achieve, and the end objective that they have in mind, right, to achieve through the product. And for you to, and there will be personas that meet that objective. It can be, there can be multiple personas that are looking for the same job to be done, and you can essentially combine both jobs to be done as a framework, and also look at their and the personas belonging to the jobs required to be done, right? So this is how you can also combine both the user segmentation and customer personas, and combine those with frameworks like jobs to be done, where we are looking at the underlying root, uh, task at hand to be delivered, looking at features. And to build these features, you also need to look at the user interviewing side of things, and understand what they would like to have, and build out solutions asking the five whys approach that we also talked earlier, and have continuous product discovery as part of the process, and leverage the information through the job to be done framework and the personas and segmentation you have built to essentially build requirements that cater to an audience, and scale the product and iterate from there. So this is how you can leverage the jobs to be done framework and user segmentation to build great products for your customers. So yeah, that's been it about user segmentation and how you can build products for a customer persona and keep them happy, and also leverage the data for these specific segments, and also empower other user segments and customer personas, that are, if there are multiple personas using your product, and scale and iterate from there. So yeah, that's been it. We'll look at a different topic on a different day tomorrow, and talk more things about a typical day in the life of a product manager, looking at all these things, and managing expectations of all the stakeholders. But see you soon, see you tomorrow, and we'll carry on from there. Thank you.